Hey guys, Shot the Monkey here. So, next part in the series of heading down to the Blohm Voss BV P.215.02. I'm going to bring you a review now of the Tier 5 German multi-role fighter, the Focke-Wulf 190A1. So, from the last review of the HG112, we've now moved on to the Focke-Wulf 190 branch properly, and it starts here at the 190A1 at Tier 5. First thing I want to point out with this aircraft, this is my opinion, but I think it's a thing I should make a note of right before we get into it. In my personal opinion, and in the opinion of others that I've spoken to about the aircraft, this is not an aircraft that is effective if you're going to fly it almost entirely exclusively, if not completely exclusively, by yourself. It is not an aircraft that works well, at least in my opinion, if you are flying just by yourself, not in a flight with someone, not teamed up with somebody, or at least working with a random on your team. It's not a bad aircraft. That doesn't mean to say that it doesn't perform well. It does, but it is weak in regards to there are only a few ways you can really defend yourself from attacks by other fighters, which is mainly for this aircraft trying to use your airspeed and trying to dive away, which works until you are attacked by other German aircraft or American aircraft who can stay with you. And then at that point you have to rely on manoeuvrability for this aircraft, which isn't brilliant. It's got a reasonable roll rate, but the turn doesn't. Turning rate is not that brilliant, and usually your only option to try and get an aircraft to get an aircraft off your tail is to force them to overshoot, which means you're coming quite close to your stall speed for this aircraft, and that's never ideal for an aircraft like this. With that being said, we'll move on to the aircraft itself. So, at Tier 5 for the 190, for the Focke-Wulf, when fully upgraded, which mine is, you have I believe 4 7.92mm MG17 machine guns. 2 are mounted here above the engine cowling, and then 2 are on the inside of the wings, at the wing roots. And then you've got 2 20mm MGFFs, or MGFMs in this case, which you can see mounted further out to the wings, just above where the bomb racks are underneath. For my aircraft, of course, as you can see, I've mounted bombs. These are 4 SD-50, so 50kg bombs, 2 on each side of the wing, which you can drop individually. I choose to do this because it's a multi-role fighter, so you can, and I think honestly with this aircraft should, go after ground targets with it if there are no air targets available, or even if there are air targets available, if you need to capture a zone to try and get a win, or try and get your team a points advantage so you can play the game a bit more comfortably and not be on edge the entire time, by all means do that. The firepower both with the guns themselves and with the bombs is more than adequate for taking out AA guns really easily, lightly armoured ground targets, and even the heavier ground targets. If you can drop a clutch of bombs on them, will either take them out entirely or severely damage them, so that a single pass from any of your ground attack aircraft will finish it off. You'll get the points for it because you assisted with it, and if you're in the capture zone and that happens to flip it, then you get the capture contribution as well, which is always nice. Moving on with the next aircraft, hit points 260. I've got a slightly reduced resistance to fire on my aircraft, but the resistance to damage stat is the same. The reason for this is the equipment that I've put on. I've put an upgraded engine, so you take a penalty to your fire resistance to have better performance with the engine, which I personally feel that you need. The aircraft does feel quite tanky, although that comes because the aircraft itself is also quite a heavy aircraft. You'll definitely feel that when you start performing vertical manoeuvres, or again, like I said, if you're going to manoeuvres where you have to drop your airspeed. It does feel like it has quite a high stall speed, and it will just drop. The controllability of the aircraft drops dramatically the lower speed you go. At higher speed, the aircraft doesn't seem to suffer all that much. You can quite happily go into very high speed dives against enemy aircraft. You will lose some controllability. That's the case with every aircraft, but of course with this being a German aircraft, they are meant to use boom and zoom, diving high speed attacks, so naturally the controls are kind of built a bit better and tuned more for that kind of operation, so you won't suffer as much in this aircraft as you would say in a Japanese aircraft or some of the Russian and British aircraft if you were doing the same kind of attacking. With regards to airspeed, cruise speed of 366 km an hour, boost speed of 590 for my aircraft, a 16-second boost duration, which is very nice to have, and a maximum down speed of 780 km an hour. As you can see here, I've got acceleration without boost up and the cruise speed up slightly because of the upgraded engine upgrade, which is something that I would highly recommend for the 190 branch as a whole, not just specifically for this aircraft. It is an aircraft, of course, with it being German, that relies on that speed and relies on that ability to just punch out a good dive, get a nice attack in, and get out of there in some cases, although you can of course reverse it into a vertical climb, or various other vertical manoeuvres and get back on the tail of someone if you need to finish them off. Manoeuvrability, not brilliant. As you can see there, average time to turn 360 degrees is 13 seconds, which isn't great. The rate of roll at 160 degrees per second is exceptional. It's very easy to get into rolling scissors with other aircraft with this thing and cause them to either overshoot or simply just manage to roll it round to get behind them. Your minimum optimal speed is 209, stall speed of 180, so you can see there is a very, very minor window there for between your minimum optimal speed and your stall speed. However, your maximum optimal speed goes up to 532, and if I pull open the airspeed tab, you can see that your maximum dive speed is 780. So there is a massive window there where you will start to lose your controllability, but you don't lose that much at all. You really don't feel it too badly. It doesn't feel any worse than other aircraft that you could go out into high-speed dives with, like for example the American P-40. I'm trying to think of the examples, the 109s even as well, of course, because of the German fighters. For altitude performance, your minimum optimal altitude is 0 meters. Again, it's a ground attack aircraft. It is, it's not a ground attack aircraft, Multirole fighter, so it can attack ground targets. So its performance does stay very reasonable, even all the way down to ground level for strafing out and attacking ground targets at the minimum altitude. Your maximum optimal altitude is 1200 meters and your service ceiling of 3200 meters. I've never had to personally take the aircraft that high. I've taken it above 1200, it still performs perfectly well. And you have a rate of climb of 91 meters a second, which again, not brilliant, but not bad either. And that is greatly helped if you can save up some boost, be it the full 16 seconds or even 8 seconds. Just pull the nose up, put on the boost, and this aircraft will claw its way up to a considerable amount of altitude in that time. I will say this, if you are going to perform this with this aircraft solo, there will be occasions where if you don't want to risk being killed or don't want to potentially have to go into a fight at a disadvantaged position, you will need to break away from combat, leave the control zones or the capture radius, just get away from the enemy team, take some time to just climb normally without boost, let your boost build up, and then turn back into the combat, climb at a higher angle with the boost active, and then dive on opponents and keep your energy going in that way. You do need to try and, as much as possible, maintain a higher energy state than the aircraft you're going after, specifically with regard to speed, because you don't have that maneuverability, as I said earlier. It also has, because with this being the earlier 190, you don't have the option of getting 420 mils in the wings as you do with the later 190, the A5. So this doesn't quite have the punch that you will get later on when you upgrade, to be able to go in, take one pass at an aircraft and take it out. Unless, of course, the aircraft in question that you're shooting at is either already damaged, quite a fragile aircraft normally, or in a case where you've perhaps dive on someone or pick off someone that's climbing up and going into a stall where they're an easy target, at which point you can get into that 600 meter distance, or ideally 440 for all your weapons to be effective, and just give them the good news. It's very easy, especially when running universal ammo, to get crits on enemy aircraft or set them on fire because of the amount of firepower that you can put out with this aircraft. Moving into service, as you can see here, as I said earlier, upgraded engine is the equipment option I've gone for out of all of them for the improved engine thrust. I have calibrated this a little bit, but I've not gone all the way with it. You could also argue to go engine arm protection. That does reduce your airspeed, which isn't ideal, but it does make it less likely that your engine will take damage. However, if you're like me and you're running engine restart equipment, be it the credit purchase one or the gold purchase one, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. It is down to personal preference, but I'd personally recommend this. For the cockpit equipment slot, for this aircraft I'd probably be more likely to opt for cockpit armour over a sight, simply because, as I said, your firepower from the front is reasonably effective with the amount of guns that you've got, but you don't have those extra 20 mils, so I wouldn't focus as much on fire accuracy because you only have 220 mils. The mainstay of your continuous firepower is going to be made up by the 4 machine guns mounted at the engine cowling at the wing roots. The 20 mils are fairly inaccurate, not too bad, not as bad as the 112, but not brilliant, and they're mounted that far apart that it's rare that you'll ever get them both on target for too long, and they overheat very quickly under sustained fire. So that's why I'd opt for cockpit armour over a sight. With regards to upgrades, as you can see here, quite an extensive upgrade tree with regards to the weapon upgrades, the one airframe that you need to mount the 20 mils in the wings, and then the 2 engine upgrades. You also have the upgrade of putting bombs on this aircraft, which, as I've said before, I choose to do just to help take out ground targets. The only upgrades you need to get on this aircraft to unlock the A5 is just the engines. Everything else is optional at that point, although I personally choose to do it, as I've said, because this can unlock modules from this aircraft to use on other branches later on. From there you move on to the A5, which I hope and I think is better performing than this aircraft at tier 5. It is still, again, as most of the 190s I imagine will be, not brilliant aircraft to be flying solo compared to the 109 branch that you can get in the German tech tree, but that feeling of being ineffective will, I assume, and I would hope, and I would probably expect, considering how much I know about these aircraft, will diminish the further down the tree that you go into the A5 and then into the D series later on, and the premium, the A8, which is also a review I'll bring out for you guys at some point in the future when I get further down the tech tree. With that being said, I can cover crew skills. As you can see, I've already started on Engine Guru. I'm going to get both of these straight away. From there, I will probably then focus on getting either Marksman, or I might go for Cruise Flight first and then focus on Marksman, just to get the most out of the speed as possible. One of them mentioned specifically for aircraft like the 190. Raptor Strike is always worthwhile getting. As you can see, that increases the chance of setting an enemy aircraft on fire and causing critical damage by 50% when diving and attacking with forward-firing weapons. But this skill only takes effect when the aircraft is approaching maximum dive speed and the pitch angle exceeds 45 degrees. But as I said, if you're entering combat with a 190, you will usually be entering combat in a way that that skill will become active. And of course, if you do get that skill, you want to focus even more on entering a fight in a dive. The aircraft should be doing it naturally anyway, but that just gives you more benefits for flying the aircraft, as is kind of recommended for the way that it should be performing in a game. Anyway, with that said, I'll let you guys watch the battles I've got lined up for you. I hope you enjoyed the combat. I hope you found this review useful and helpful for you. And yeah, I'll personally say this as a last note. This is an aircraft that I absolutely love. Not just for World of Warplanes, but across the board in any World War II combat aviation game that I've flown, be it War Thunder, be it R2 Sturmovik, be it World of Warplanes, anything else. I love the 190. This is, in my opinion, a great aircraft. This probably stems from me just enjoying the idea that aircraft are performing, kind of air support. I suppose what you'd probably call nowadays a CAS role. But for me, the 190 is a brilliant aircraft. Wonderfully kind of rugged, able to take a beating, and the firepower that these things could carry in their various loadouts throughout the war is just mind-blowing, considering what the Allies were putting out at that same period of time. And of course, also carrying the paint jobs like these just looks nice, personally. But yeah, anyway, I'll stop blabbing on about this aircraft. I'll let you guys watch the games, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
You are approaching the front line. Off we go. I'm proud of you, pilots. Head back home. Show me what you can do, pilots. Let's roll. We've taken control of the airfield. The battle is almost over. Be ready to return. Turn back. The enemy force is too strong.